Nipigon, Stoney Nakoda, and the Tsutena Sarsi, as well as the Cree, Sioux, and Saulteaux bands of the Ojibwa peoples. We also acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Métis Nation. I would now ask any of the commission members participating in this meeting to advise the chair if they have any perceived or known conflicts of interest as per tonight's agenda.
Seeing none, we'll move into the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? If not, I would like to add one item under new business, and that'll be seat allocation / accommodation on the police commission, and I will speak to that at the appropriate time. With that addition, can I get a mover and a seconder? Marco and Shala, all in favor? Carried. Minutes were sent out earlier this week. Are there any errors or omissions from the March 23rd meeting? Seeing none, the motion to accept the minutes as presented. Terry and Marco, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Okay, moving into standing items, police budget update, Acting Chief Secondiak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very briefly, we are currently projecting a negative variance, but we hope to mitigate that and minimize the effects throughout the course of the year.
Okay. And then we'll move on to the operational services report. Inspector West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a few things to cover off. If you turn to page, we don't have the page numbers on here, operational services highlights in the patrol section. So the first point there is with regard to Alberta Gaming and Liquor Commission, attended several establishments with patrol members to check on compliance. So we see as we, in the post-COVID era, and I've talked about this before, our licensed premise safety is becoming more of a priority, and certainly sometimes we partner with our partners with AGLC. So it was good that we did some checks there. The second bullet point there, patrol officers responded to a convenience store in Crescent Heights for the report of a disturbance involving a knife, which is what they thought they were responding to. Once on scene, officers identified a suspect who was taken into custody, identified as being involved in the dispute. And upon searching the suspect incidental to arrest, a loaded sawed-off Savage Model B-17 rifle was concealed in the waistband. So I thought I'd put a picture in it there for you. So it's a, it should be a rifle that's been sawed back to a weapon that's easily concealable. The suspect was charged with assault as well as numerous firearm charges. So a very dangerous call, comes in a disturbance. We go to disturbances on a daily, if not hourly basis. And you just never know what you're responding to. So some great work on the part of the officers here and recovered that firearm, which is, becoming more and more common. Next bullet point is another sort of disturbing call that we had. Police responded to a report of a disturbance involving a weapon down on 3rd Street. Suspect was located and arrested upon search. A large knife was located on the suspect. Taken into custody and charged accordingly, and complicated the investigation by giving us the name of another person somewhat known to us. So just a couple of examples of weapons complaints that we've been attending. With regard to K9, so our new K9 handler, Constable McPherson, and his new dog Bronx are into their 2nd or 3rd week of training now. So, and our grizzled old veteran Staff Sergeant Darcy Brandt is taking the lead on the training there, and they're progressing well and provided some training to the cadet class. Moving on to the community support unit, so a couple of numbers that jumped out were parent contacts. So as we're getting into the spring season here, a regular part of the duties of the SROs, they do have contact with parents when there's conflicts or various issues. So we saw a little bit of an uptick there. And a rise in sanctions and warnings. So this is where there's sort of a serious chat with, when behavior is escalated to the point where police need to be involved and the officers have a chat. Those are on the uptick as well. And turning over to the downtown patrol unit, of note there, 3 on March 22nd, the Medicine Drug Treatment Court celebrated its third graduate from the program. And so that's great news. And if you talk to Brian Bourne about it, he has really loves to spend time at that program, and he actually sees the results. And he's done a great job of advocating for that program with other officers who may be skeptics, saying, you know what, come with me to drug treatment court. I mean, this is serious, very serious business. They have to really comply with so many conditions to graduate. And so we attend those graduations, and we usually have them a gift. I think we've been giving them the Yeti Cup, which is a small token, but just great news there that we've got a third, or graduated 3. And just onto the forensic identification unit. So second bullet point there, FIU completed training with alert with regard to Axon capture. So this is the police services, jump forward with regard to technology. So Axon capture allows officers to take pictures of evidence, something that we maybe normally would have to call somebody out for, or call an FIU member to the exhibit room to take pictures of. We can now take those pictures, and they're automatically part of the file and upload it to evidence.com. So that's great news, and I think the long game is to roll that out to patrols. So for minor offenses, graffiti and mischiefs, we can take those pictures and upload them right to the cloud, which is great news. And that's all I have from operational services. Unless anybody
Inspector West, the Axon, is that the same as the body-worn cameras? That's
Yeah.
the same company?
Yeah,
or
so,
model, I should say?
so Axon is the company that makes TASER, our conducted energy weapon, as well as body cams, dash cams, drones, and all kinds of things.
Shala.
Yes, thanks, Inspector West. I had a quick question. I had 2 questions, actually. One with the weapons. We're seeing an alarming rate of weapons, and with all the injuries and assaults against police officers, what are we doing, or are we doing anything differently to protect our officers? Because, I mean, this is just an ugly time right now, but I'm assuming there's angst amongst the officers to even attend some of these calls right now. What are we doing different? Are we seeing any angst amongst the officers?
There's no outward angst, but a few things that we do is we have a great program for intel gathering and distribution at the patrol level. So I think in times past, we sort of, the intelligence was kind of, hoarded. It was drug intel, but that's kind of separated. We have our analyst, Amber, works pretty much full-time on ground level patrol intel. So she combs the RMS and other systems for these types of incidents. So our officers are informed those. And I have to tell you that we have our patrol sergeants are very attuned to the dangers out there. And in patrol briefings they've gone from, reading out the patrol sergeant's log with what's gone on in the past, and I really see sort of a safety briefing, and it's not just be careful out there. They talk about the offenders. There's a good intel gathering at that level, and I think our officers are more adept to making sure they team up when they go to certain types of calls. And of course, Chief Murphy has made it optional on night shifts for officers to pair up when they can. So we've certainly taken some steps, and a lot of I don't recall any time lost injuries recently due to assaults on police officers. So I think we're doing okay, but boy, it's a ball we really got to keep our eye on, for sure.
Well, not just the incidents, but the officers,
Yes, for sure.
Happening in a different community doesn't mean it's not happening here.
Absolutely.
And
Exactly.
it's like it happened next door, so
Yeah.
we need to keep an eye. My second question was DPU. Are we back to fully staffed on DPU?
Yeah, so we made a selection recently here. So Travis Funk will be joining Brian Bourne May 4th, I think is his first day.
Excellent.
And we're doing some maneuvering now to hope to have a third officer by July to start for the summer months. We're just, resources are really tight, and really we're waiting for the recruits to be done the FTO process when they're fully independent patrol officers, and we're hoping to bring somebody else into the fold in July.
Fantastic. And I know you know this, but I'll just say it for the record. We're seeing an uptake downtown. So
Yep.
on 3rd Street, where I pull in to get my mail before I go down the back alley to my office. So I come down Division, and then I turn off right on 3rd Street, and then I come down 3rd again, and right outside the Legion, that old folks home there. So 3 mornings out of the last 7, because I always stop and get my mail there every morning, so they know who I am. They're like, hi, how are you? And they see my rotten dogs and, you know, all that other stuff. And this one, 3 times in the last, I'm gonna say about 10 days now there, can you help us? But going to the vestibule, because it's open, like, these guys are out of it. Like, they're not just sleeping there, they are completely defunct of rationalization. But the last one was violent. And so, and some of these guys don't have cell phones. And funny enough, mine was in my office, so I didn't have a cell phone. So it was, just to let you know, it seems like it's starting to be a habit down on that 3rd corner. And I'm pretty sure that Brian knows that already, but just so you're aware.
Yes.
And then Dr. Marsh's office seems to be the newest, right beside me, right? Because he passed away, what, about a year ago now? So it's empty, right? So there's me, and then there's a home, and then there's an empty building, and I think there was an encampment there a little while ago, but the guys busted it up pretty good. But we're starting to see more and more. So Bill Yule's office is right across the street, and they gave me a call in today and just said, you know, hey, so just an FYI.
Yes, thank you.
Just to know, is there any update? Minister Ellis mentioned one way back that there was kind of a move to get all the officers to wear body-worn cameras. Has there been any update on that, or?
I don't think there's been any update. That's probably gonna come post-election, but we're sort of in a good place. We had some meetings with Axon here last week. You know, our infrastructure is all in place. It'd just be a matter of training the officers and you know, getting the hardware. So we're in great shape to take on those extra cameras and go full deployment.
Awesome, thank you. Marco?
Yeah, Inspector West, I know you wanted to speak on this, and there's other interesting things came up, but I am still curious, and again, for the benefit of the public, short time ago, you had that one arrest where they were able to deploy the drone and track a suspect using infrared. Can you speak a little bit more about that? Because I think it's really interesting. It's a neat tech thing, but also speak to how having the personnel and that technology available to us is such a massive force multiplier, where in larger jurisdictions, they use helicopters. We can do it with a drone.
Yeah, so there's been a couple of calls now where basically we've got K9 and they're actually going to try and do some joint training together. We have had, I think the last one was break and enter, the suspects leave, we get a drone. We happen to have a drone operator pilot working, and I've seen him deploy the drone. Constable Scrimger can get that drone out and deployed, I'm going to say within 60 seconds or less. It's unbelievable. Got the drone up. Meanwhile, Keenan was doing track, and I believe the suspects actually got into a home, or one of them got into the home. Another one was there, and so as K9 was doing the track, and the drone was, spotted the suspect. They didn't sort of coordinate that, nor should they. So it was, there's no like, hey, I think I have a guy here. The dog naturally led to the suspect, and the drone had identified the suspect. So it really, it's great evidence, and I believe it was a heat signature that we actually saw on the drone. It was at, must have been at night where they got special permission to launch the drone. So we've had, I think that's the second one. So certainly that's some technology and a tactic that we want to leverage in the future, and we do have some joint training planned in the next few months here, so.
Terrific, and yeah, joint training makes a lot of sense. I'm excited to see what comes from that.
Yeah.
Okay, hearing none from Inspector West, we'll move on to the Investigation and Support Services. Inspector Secondiak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to start off with our amazing information technology section, I'd be remiss if I didn't speak to them. Mike's smiling. Backed by popular demand is going to be our call mapping, our service mapping. So I talked to our IT manager today. So in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we should have our crime maps available once again on the website, perhaps a mobile app. This was hugely popular a few years ago when we had it, but we had to disable it because we had an American mapping company and there was some errors in the data that showed up. But our IT section's been working with GIS with the city to make this, we're able to do it now with the Medicine Hat accurate data, and that'll be out in the near future, so undoubtedly we'll have a media release about that. If you're, just so you're aware, the calls are, some of them are sanitized and not published on there. There's general street, there's not exact houses, it's on avenues and streets. So hugely popular with the public, and we unfortunately had to shut it down, but it's back. Moving on next to the organized crime section and alert. I just wanted to focus on Operation Miami. We did a media release on this last month, but just a really amazing longer-term file. It took them a better part of a year to work on this, but it really, again, shows how effective it is, the collaboration between the Medicine Hat Police Service and the RCMP. It allows us to get extra resources in place so we can not only deal with smaller files that pop up with these longer-term, larger files. So in Operation Miami, the end result is they charged 4 people, executed 3 separate search warrants, and seized about half a kilo of cocaine, some psilocybin or mushrooms, 30 grams, just over an ounce of methamphetamine, and some oxycodone pills and some various other drugs, and seized nearly $40,000 in Canadian currency. So great work by our drug team in Alert. Moving on to the Regional Property Crime Team, and I just wanted to focus on Operation Mixer because I think this affects businesses within the city and the rural area. So, of course, RCMP span of control is down to the border, to Saskatchewan, up to Oyen and near Bazzano. We had approximately 40 commercial break-and-enters reported to police in a short period. If you look at our crime stats at the beginning of the report, they have gone down since this file happened. So RPCU was assigned these files. They identified a suspect based on clothing, security footage, just some great investigation technique. And they were execute search warrants here within the city and charge a male with 9 of the break-and-enters and a few breaches of court orders and a theft charge as well. So absolutely outstanding work by RPCU on this file, and it has affected the number of break-and-enters that we've had recently within the city. So kudos to them. Pardon me. And then lastly, under the criminal investigation section, we did a media release on this in March with regards to a grandparent scam. So there were some victims here in the city. It's important to educate everyone in your family, especially elderly people. They often are the victims of grandparent scams. So they received a phone call. In this particular case, it was someone pretending to be a lawyer. They needed an amount of money to have a grandchild released from custody. In this particular case, there was someone physically who came to the residence, which is unique in my experience. It's all wire transfers and quick transfers through different money marts, that type of thing. So in this case, our CIS section took the file. They are working with police agencies across Canada because often these will scam artists or fraudsters will come into a community, stay for a day or two, and then move on to cities either east, west, north, or south of us and continue with the same fraudulent activity. So unfortunate, there were some victims here in Medicine Hat, but they're no longer here, and we continue to investigate to hopefully identify the suspects. Those are the highlights from my section, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
On the grandparent scam, so what do we do as far as education?
It's difficult because they constantly change the same probe, and I read an article recently about artificial intelligence, how they're starting to clone faces on FaceTime and voices on Voice ID, so it's getting more and more difficult. So I would talk to your loved ones, especially if they're elderly, and just say, if anyone calls you for money, confirm it with me. Here's my phone number. Call me. We'll talk about it before you just immediately send money. You can have code words because it's easy to spoof phone numbers now as well. We find that often that someone could mimic my phone number and call and would come up on your phone as Brent Secondiak. So it's becoming very, very difficult, but I think known communication with a loved one is really the only hope. of not falling victim to these type of scams, but we're constantly trying to have to stay ahead of technology. And when I heard about AI and the ability to change your voice and actually have somebody else's face on FaceTime alarmed me. So, and that is happening. We have never seen that here, but I know it's happening across North America. So
Wow.
it's really that communication, and just, if you're not 100% sure, don't send the money, and talk to people in person. Take your time before any money is
I'm
sent
not
anywhere.
referring to myself, just because it sounds like when I said elderly, you're all over it with me, and just be careful.
I am
'cause
not.
Okay.
I am not.
But second to that, here's my question. Do the police at all, no, do the police at all do anything, like information sessions at the Viner Center, or is that something that,
We have done. I think we can do
Oh,
them
okay.
more frequently. It is difficult because we can't reach
For
everyone.
sure.
I know historically, we went out to most of the seniors' homes in town, and there was many of them.
yes,
So we kind of hit the larger ones, but our only hope is community education
yeah.
is probably the best bet. But
Yeah.
it is very, very difficult to stop these type of things. The main thing is, a lawyer will not attend to your house to pick up money, ever. You will have to go to their office and make sure it's a legitimate lawyer in town. And the police, we do not take wire transfers of $8,000 for bail. We've never, ever, ever done that. If there is bail, which is seldom, it would be $500, I think is the most I've ever done, and you have to come to the Medicine Police Service, and there's a series of forms that have to be signed. So just be very hesitant, especially if it's thousands of dollars. That doesn't happen in Canada. I know there's different
Right.
issues in the United States, so.
yeah, for sure. Thanks, Brent.
You're
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for that, and quick training on grandparenting, since there's three of us, another one soon to be, so now we're educated on that, so I really appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, I actually had one question for
Yes.
Inspector Secondiak. Just for reference, with regards to the alert, the Operation Miami, I'm sure a lot of people see these type of arrests and, you know, this laundry list of seized substances, but I don't have a frame of reference, like, for example, 30 grams of methamphetamine. I know what 30 grams is, but how many doses is that? I think that's valuable for people to know. That, is that 3 doses of 10 grams? Is it, you know, do the math, is it 3,000? How many actual typical doses would that represent?
And that's often, I know it's always contained in the expert opinion report. So methamphetamine is sold by the gram. It is, I don't know the current street value, but it's approximately $100 plus or minus $20. I'd have to ask one of the current drug operators. So about 30 doses, maybe 32. The cocaine's about the same, and you'll see buffing agent in there. Traffickers will often mix cocaine because it's in hydrochlorides in powder form, so they'll mix it with a buffing agent, really to make more money, because you increase the weight so you can sell more of a diluted product to a consumer. So cocaine is often consumed, it's often sold by the gram. A heavy user could consume a gram at a time, but most users maybe a quarter to a half gram at a time. And I only know this because I was a drug expert a long time ago. I don't know personal experience. And same with psilocybin, I'm not an expert on, so I don't know the dosing on that. And I know drugs like fentanyl are sold by the point. A point is a tenth of a gram, and a point is about $100 a point. So a gram of fentanyl can go for a lot of money, $1,000. So it's very expensive. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you.
The other question I have, on some of these apprehensions you guys have had, which, you know, congratulations on those. What's the average jail time that these individuals would serve? And I know it varies, but what would be an average jail time?
For alert files, they're typically longer because they're very complete investigations, a large team working on them. We now have a disclosure clerk that from Alert funded here full-time. So it depends on the size of the seizure. It'd be hard to say. It depends on previous record and all sorts of factors, but it'd be federal jail time. Anything federal is over, anything over 2 years is federal time. So 2, 3, 4 years. I know on some of our larger files, they're looking for 15, 16 years in jail. So it depends on a number of factors.
Okay, so there's good. So they are away for a period of time at least.
Correct, yeah.
Good. Any other questions of Inspector Secondiak? If not, then we'll jump over to the chief's report and Acting Chief, Mr. Kondiak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to highlight a few of Chief Murphy's activities for March. The chief hosted a group of our employees and the Be the Change Award winners for International Women's Day. So I think we've reported on this before, but a group of our female staff members and police officers last year thought it'd be a wonderful idea to have a monthly nomination for change agents in our city, female change agents. So there was one a month that was nominated. We did a media release and presented them with a certificate and some gifts. So the chief last month hosted all the change winner awards at MHPS in our community boardroom and spoke on their behalf. It was really a wonderful celebration. I was lucky to attend that one with the chief. The chief also hosted the cadet graduation at Patterson Army. So we had 9 cadets graduate. They're currently deployed with patrols for Inspector West, and we're hopeful they'll be out on the street in the next few months. That's wonderful. Chief Murphy, along with Inspector West, represented the police service at a funeral held by the Edmonton Police Service for Constables Ryan and Jordan. There was approximately 30 MHPS members in attendance with Chief Murphy and Inspector West. So very difficult from what I hear, but it was wonderful we could have a lot of members attend. And then lastly, the chief was given a tour of the Halo Air Ambulance. We do work with them closely with the drone as well, but this is really activities that are longer. It's along the riverbanks, typically missing persons where you have to be up in the air for hours, where a drone typically can't do that with battery life. So he had a wonderful meeting with them about how we can assist and work together in the future. Those are the highlights from the chief for last month.
I just got a quick question on the occurrence right below that, the mental health. March seems to really jump up significantly. Any particular thing, or is just more reported?
Excellent question, because I know Inspector West and myself discussed that this afternoon. So it's undoubtedly due to the weather's turning warmer. They're more visible in the public, so the public will call in more, just more obvious. So we're getting more public phone calls into the service. Somebody's acting irrationally and they're concerned about behavior. So we'll undoubtedly see an uptick in that throughout the summer, and we have historically as well.
So warm weather does, okay.
Correct.
Good. Any other questions of the chief there? Terry?
Just regarding your last point, is there actually a process, or is there a possibility of using the ambulance air assets for a search, for instance?
Yes, and we've used them in the past numerous times. I can think of a file I was on years ago where Halo came up. They're so gracious and always willing to help us. So it's typically for missing persons, but their services are available if we had someone on the run hiding in a wooded area. They would absolutely come up. But we do have the drone as well that is capable of a lot of that. But they are, anytime we call them, they're ready to go within minutes. So just wonderful agency to work with.
That's great info. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you for that. Okay, moving on to new business, the item that I brought up earlier, seat allocation / accommodation. I just wanted to put that on the table. There's been some discussion in the past about perhaps increasing the number of the seat allocation or accommodating for the police commission. And there's a lot of moving parts going on in the province right now with the Police Act possibly being reviewed. The Minister Ellis has indicated that. There's also AAPG is doing some homework on that. So I am just wondering if that's something that should be paused, and I just wanted the comments and opinions from the commission members if that's what their thoughts are. So Marco, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start off with that. Yeah, it's, as you said, there's so many moving parts. There's the amendment to the Police Act, the potential change to the structure of police commissions on number of seats on it, how many seats are allocated to the municipality, how many seats are appointed by the province. To make any significant change now, I think would be very high risk of a waste of resources. We may come up with all kinds of ideas and procedures and ways to do it, and that might become completely moot with the changes that are coming down the line. So I think we should wait, as you said, for the province to finish that process. I'm told through AAPG that, and meetings we've had with Minister Ellis, we're looking at 12 to 18 months before that settles down. They are very open to consultations with the various commissions on what that restructuring is going to look like as well. There were some concerns, for example, that if they load us up with provincial appointees right away, we may lose the ability for chairs and vice chairs, for example, to renew their terms. And then suddenly we have commissions that have no one on them that has more than one term's experience. And there's a succession issue. So as you said, a lot of moving parts. I think it's wise for us to wait and see what that shakes down as before we start looking for any changes from our end.
Good comments from Shala. Terry?
Yes, I absolutely think we should wait. We know, so City Council's also been in the loop as a council. The Solicitor General is working with us as well, and they recently just worked, Minister Ellis's Chief of Staff reached out to our Chief of Staff and is working on keeping us in the loop on certain things. So bottom line is this: I don't believe in wasting resources. Let's see what shakes out from that. Once we see the act, then we proceed with a new motion, and it doesn't matter who's in favor or not favor. It's about making sure that we don't waste our valuable human resources chasing something that could all just be ripped up in 30 days. So I really do think they're trying to make this work for the councils and commissions. They're actively trying to engage, and they're engaging council a lot, so that's good. And then just let's see what the act comes up with, because we do fall under that act. There's no point in making changes or what we think are changes to council, but our authority comes from the MGA, and the MGA is provincial. So let's just get this act done, and then we can do whatever we need to after that. So I would be very much in favor on putting a hold on any further actions.
Good comments. Thanks. Terry?
Yeah, can't argue with any of that. It would be, seems to me it'd be really awkward if we made a change in the commission structure and would have to revoke it or found that it just was not practical for whatever reason that we possibly can't imagine right now. So absolutely in agreement with the other two members.
Okay, well, thank you. Hearing that, obviously, we're all appear to be in agreement. So I think we should have a formal motion to pause this. So anyone want to make a motion? Terry?
Yeah, don't know what the proper wording is. I'll try it, I guess. So I would move that we table the issue and discussion regarding future seat allocation of the Police Commission until there is further and final direction from the province.
Second.
Shala?
Just for a discussion point, for Councilor Sharps, does city staff need anything specific from us beyond the wording
No.
of that word? Is that going to be enough for them? Okay, terrific, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's rather clear that we pause until the whole process is clarified by all parties involved. So any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, no action items. Moving on to the community consultation. We have one member in the gallery, so if you'd like to come forward to the podium and introduce yourself.
No, we have to do this first.
Sorry.
Yeah, stand by.
I'm just going to ask Terry Meidinger, come on up, but Terry just going to read the format for somebody coming into the community. So Terry will just outline the format here.
Can I grab a bottle of water?
So my first question was to ask if any member of the public would like to pose a question. Obviously, the chair already knew that, so I'll just move along here. Before we open this session, we would ask that you kindly respect the following guidelines. Please note that complaints about officer conduct or MHPS policies and any details concerning ongoing investigations or personnel matters are not topics for this forum, and that's as per the provisions set out in the Alberta Police Act. You'll be given up to 3 minutes to present your comments and questions. They're to be directed to the chair, Mr. Rodich. The chair may in turn ask members of the police service to respond if appropriate. And if the above is acceptable to you, we'll open the floor to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak here. My name is James Watson. I've got 2 questions. I'll generalise them so we don't go down to specifics. The first one, the general one, the first one would be, why don't we, or why isn't the bylaw officers labelling dog attacks as dog attacks when they're obviously dog attacks? And they're using different opinions and labelling rather than labelling them as a dog attack. All right? And then the second question is, moving forward as we're going into spring and summer here, and the increased activity of dogs on the trails and the excessive amount of off-leash trails that we have here in town, are there going to be any changes this year to the previous years? Because there have been, and I'm in the running and hiking community, there have been an excessive amount of dog interactions, and they're increasing. We always hear about them, but we never hear about what the repercussions were after the report was made, unless, you know, we can say, this person got a fine, this person did that, or whatever. But it's never actually publicised, and so the public need to know. Is there a way that the public are going to know that if your dog does attack, chase a person, another dog, or a wild animal, it's going to be labelled as a vicious animal? So that was actually 3 parts there to my question.
I'm not an expert, but I'm going to ask Inspector West or Secondiak to address that if they can. Thank you.
The first, to your first question, it really does come down to, we do have a process. Well, first of all, our bylaw officers are trained to investigate these types of incidents. They do so often, and they do make judgment calls on taking into account all the circumstances. They make a call and they, do the appropriate enforcement. They can lay a ticket. And in the case of vicious dogs, so the labeling of a vicious dog, there is a process for that. And the process is that the bylaw officers, as part of the investigation, will look at a number of the circumstances of the event, the results of the event, the history of the animal, the history of the owners, and take all that into consideration, then form the opinion if the dog should be deemed vicious, in which case a recommendation is made to the chief of police. So at the chief's level, the chief, if it's handled otherwise, it's just another investigation and it hasn't reached that threshold, the chief really doesn't, know about all those investigations. When it does come up, the chief makes a call and usually backs up what the bylaw officers have recommended, and the dog is deemed vicious. The dog and the owners, well, the owners have a number of conditions to keep in order to keep that dog, such as, muzzle laws. I wasn't prepared for your question tonight, so I don't have all the laws or the bylaws in front of me. But so there is a process, and there's also an appeal process. And we know that vicious dog designations are highly sensitive. They're highly scrutinized. And so, there's a lot of scrutiny that goes into designating a dog vicious. We have had a couple of dogs. I think they made the news. We did news releases on them that were made that were deemed vicious. I think there was an appeal one, which our officers, the service won the appeal on that, and the dog's designation as vicious were, kept. So to answer your question, our officers do the investigation, they take the appropriate action, and, it's not always the result that complainants, or in a lot of circumstances, dog owners alike, but that's kind of the investigative process. With regards to off-leash areas, I know that the Parks is coming up with a master plan. As it turns out, I ran into one of the Parks managers at the Calgary Airport last week and said, hey, what's going on with the dog leash areas? So they've kind of narrowed it down to a couple of different models that they're looking at, and I'm what's the timeline on that. They're hoping to roll something out within the next few months, but that's a parks issue. We have some input on that. We get, they consult with us on what our thoughts are from the bylaw perspective, but we really have no control over the timelines with regard to those designations. And I think your third question was, can we do a better job of educating the public about vicious dog, or responsible pet ownership? And certainly I've got that, and it's probably worthy of some discussion. And just circling back to the vicious dog designation, I've asked for a review of that process. So what is the criteria? Do we really have it nailed down? The bylaw is very general, dog attack. What makes, to your point, what makes a dog attack or not? And so we are reviewing that process, and I've asked our bylaw supervisor to come up with a briefing note and an SOP on exactly what we're doing with regard to vicious dog, with the vicious dog designation. So I hope that addresses some of your questions, but I'll answer any follow-up questions you might have.
So okay,
Yeah,
respond.
go ahead.
The one concern I've got is, and see if this rings true, that when these badly behaved animals attack someone and it's not labeled as a vicious animal, then the statistics don't reflect that. So then we're looking like, oh, hey, we're in the green zone. Medicine Hat's in the green zone, when in reality we're not. We're in the red zone, because all these, dog chasing, wild animals, biting other dogs, chasing cyclists, chasing runners, when they're all reported, they're only labelled as a poorly behaved dog, not as an out-of-control dog or a more serious designation. So then I think that perhaps our statistics are maybe not where they should be. Is that something that could be looked at and could be addressed? And maybe that would help us to engage more enforcement. Because I'm already in contact with Parks and Rec. I've seen the new maps, the 4 different options. The 0 change, the 25% change, the 50% change, and the 100% change. I've seen the maps already. So I've been in contact with them, and I'm all for people enjoying the trails and the paths and taking their dogs out, but I'm not about the people with the badly behaved dogs getting away with it all the time, because it's getting out of hand. It's getting, yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And, there is, a capacity issue, but in my conversation with Parks, and I don't mean to, hey, Parks is going to look after everything, but I know Parks is looking at a Parks Ambassador program where we do have other eyes on those parks and trails that can assist us in responding accurately to dog, or dog events, well, it's dogs, or say other pets, well, it's just the dogs, in responding to those. So there is I guess I hope you can take some comfort in the fact that we are, take these issues to heart. I know like the dog issue is extremely important. That we are reviewing that vicious dog process, and we are hopeful. I'm kind of with you on the designation of like a full change. We would like to see more restrictive, as a police service and from an enforcement perspective, more restrictive off-leash areas, so that we can we can police or do enforcement. We hope that the parks does come through with that ambassador program, so we do have more eyes on the ground. And can we do a better job of doing some media with regard to responsible pet ownership? I think I'm sort of looking over towards Rita. Yes, we can, and we'll work on that. To your point, summertime, more dogs out, and it's probably great timing to do that.
Okay. Terry, you have a comment?
Yeah, just quickly, I'm way out of my knowledge zone here, but I think you did indicate, there should be more reporting and different statistics. We do have a municipal enforcement report in front of us for the month. It indicated 107 animal control calls, and it does have an aggressive dog call category, of which there were 6 in the month of March. Okay. So that is captured. Am I interpreting that correct? Okay, just thought I'd throw that in just as a bit of info.
Shallow.
Yeah, so from a city council point of view, I wanted to also bring this up. So that master plan has been approved, but it's still coming back in front of council for further scrutiny. And as you can appreciate, Jim, there's lots of people that feel the way you do, but there's also half our population, and it's exactly split down the middle that disagree with you. So we have to look after our entire population, not just the ones that own dogs and not just the ones that don't own dogs. So one of the things we've tasked, Parks and Rec, and they are working on it. Wherever there is a free area, there's signage, clean and simple, lets everybody know what it is. And much to your point, Jim, you're right. I'm a dog owner. I'm a very responsible dog owner. Mine are never off leash, ever, even an off leash, unless I'm in an enclosed area. Mostly because I don't trust them to run away and be silly. But I will tell you, not all humans are the nicest either. I walk with the dog leash, and mine is a waist leash, so these little buggers can't go more than 5 feet away from me. And I never wear earplugs so I can see and hear anything coming behind me. And I have had bikers literally try to run my dogs over, and I have had a jogger run by me this week, came back to try to kick my dog. Dogs shouldn't be allowed. So let me tell you, this goes both ways. And you know that. You and I have had this conversation.
And that's a different story.
No, it's
That's
actually,
for a different-
it's
that's-
actually the
that's a different-
same story about working together on these PATs. So it's not just about it's about us being a community together and using these PATs and sharing these PATs once we get them labeled. And then to your point, once we get them labeled and everybody working together, because guess what? If you try to come kick my dog, it might bite you.
Oh, 100%.
And that is the truth. But then second to that, even when bylaw does put charges down, they have a right to appeal in front of council. So there's 2 members of council and a member of administration on that they can appeal to. And we've had lawyers in here, we've had vets in here, we've had psychologists in here, all defending or trying to put down, us getting to reverse your decision, and it's happened. So just so you know, it's a very extensive, and they do have that right now to come back in front of council and do that, just so you're aware. I think you do, yeah.
And I totally understand that, and I'll just quickly respond to that. Now, if a person ran up to me and bit me in the neck, he would go to jail. If a dog runs up and bites me in the neck, that dog should be treated equally. But it's not happening. It's not happening. Well, I'm just, if you're going to start comparing people to animals.
No, but I don't think we can make up laws either.
Well, that's right, but if a person ran up and bit me in the neck, he'd be going to jail. But if a dog runs up and bites me in the neck, then we can appeal it. We can give him retraining, we can do whatever. But I feel that the severity of someone breaking the bylaw is far more severe than the pet owners right now. And that's obviously just my impression, which doesn't really count. But a lot of the problems are definitely down to the behavior of the dog owners. I get yelled at and screamed at. I've been assaulted by a dog owner whose dog would not stop chasing me. And I'm sorry for breaking away from the generalized, but you were telling the story about your dogs. The dog would not stop chasing me, and the guy was screaming at me to stop running. So when I did stop running, the guy ran up to me and started calling me, he heard my accent, he was calling me an effing wanker and making fun of my accent. And I said, look, this is your problem, not mine. So then he pushed me. The dog owners are out of control, and they're offended that their dog should do something wrong. How dare you tell my dog it's doing something wrong? That's part of my family. So we're in the running and hiking community, a lot of us, we can't go out and run now in the proper headspace. We can't. It's impossible. There's trails in town now that I won't go on anymore because it's just too dangerous. I'll run through the industrial area and take in the diesel fumes and dodge the semi-trucks before I'll run on some of the trails in town now. And that's how bad it's getting. And a lot of people need these trails. They need them for their physical and mental health. And we're being stopped from using them because of the poor behavior of the dog owners. That was more of a statement than a question.
Well, I have to somewhat agree with that comment that a lot of dog owners are not responsible. I've had a 3-year-old grandchild with me, and the dog comes running at me, And I started yelling, and the dog owner's giving me heck, like, hang on here, buddy. Well, the dog's not gonna bite. I don't know that.
We don't know.
So I had words for him that weren't Merry Christmas. So in any event,
I've been bitten twice in 14 months. Once I was running a half marathon on Eckerdale Trail, and once I was hiking on Mr. Burnside Trail. Twice in 14
that's not,
months.
that's
I've been
not
bitten.
right, but, yeah. Anyways, are we addressing your comments and,
I think I've probably said more than I was planning on saying. I actually didn't prepare to come here tonight. I only found out about this meeting, found out about the meeting half an hour before the meeting started. So I just came down and thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak to you, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on, no presentation, future reference and up and coming meetings. The next Police Commission open meeting will be Wednesday, May 17th at 6 PM, followed in June by June 21st at 6 PM. So if there are no other,
And
Mark?
just again, I'll be absent for the May 17th meeting.
The which, I'm sorry?
I'll be absent for the May
All
17th
right,
meeting.
yes, yeah, and likewise here too. Nothing further, the meeting's adjourned.